What are the two main types of flows of time? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. What are the two main types of flows of time? I already did a video on what is time, so if you want to get into what I think about the basic concepts of time, check that out. We're here to discuss what are the two main types of flows of time, and to just get further into it. Now, from where I'm sitting, I see two main types of flows of time. I mean, really, there's kind of like three. There's what I call the entropic flow of time. There's the creative / growth flow of time. And then a third anomalous but existing one is the neutral flow of time. So when we discussed about time, we know that it's really the derivative effect of motion through the void. And as relative motion and matter is born and sequencing starts to occur and motion and growth and decay occur, those are all symptoms of what we call time, and those end up being like really what we define as time. Like we end up defining time as like, vibration in relation to life cycles, and I cover all that, right? So really, when we have that understanding of what time is, or like, it's all philosophical, so it could be a little bit different or whatever, you really come down to, there's really two main types of flows of time, right? Because when we do the thought exercise and we go back to the Big Bang and we start and everything is emanating from the initial Big Bang, those create the flows of time. And there's really two main ones. You have what I call the entropic flow of time, which is entropy. It's a flow of time where it's going, but it is now engaged in decay. And it's a stream of time that is coming to an end, and anything that's in that stream is also heading towards its death, the cessation of its existence, the eventual lowering and complete stillness of its vibration as it goes from a vibrating thing into a form of stillness. And then, we can philosophize from there if it, gets reabsorbed into the universe, or like however it gets recycled or whatever happens to it, it just dissipates. But to me, that flow of time is evident. And when objects or systems or anything, when they reside in that particular flow of time, because it's a flow of time that's entropic, it's engaged in entropy, then necessarily all of the things in that particular type of flow of time are going to engage and exhibit the symptoms of entropy. And in that sense, it's a zero-sum sense of time. And it ends up really kind of just being its own time spur, because it's only in that flow and you have to be in it, right, as it just goes to a single point somewhere out in the future. And when one engages in an entropic flow of time, it informs the concepts and the thinking and the behaviors of those engaged in that time spur, which means zero sum, finite resources, everything's going to end. Like it kind of puts a lid on everything. And the vast majority of sentient beings in an entropic time flow don't know that. They just think those are the base laws of physics, or that's just their relativity, so they don't really get beyond it. And it makes the foundational intellectual level for all of their analysis of the reality. It's like, oh, well, this makes sense. Everything's finite. Everything's coming to an end. We're just engaged in a slow march or a quick march towards dissolution. and so it sets that tone when you're in it, right? As opposed to if you're in the creative or growth flow of time, it's the opposite of a time spur. It's a flow that promises to continually broaden its horizon. It's a flow that promises to continually open itself up and never end. It's a time flow, and which becomes a timeline of eternal life. It recognizes that there's no end, and that any sense that you would think that there would be an end is an illusion. And that, in fact, within that time flow, even things that seem super rationally coming to an end or a cycle closing or something, in some of those peak moments, they'll phase shift into a new possibility that from this perspective you could never have imagined in the first place. And it'll just be a series of that, of the continuation of life and growth. Oh, you think this thing is ending. It's not really ending. It's just being absorbed into a rebirth of a larger organism. Or, oh, I feel like this whole system is coming to an end. And then it is, but it's not that it's coming to an end. It's just that flow of time is preparing that system to be connected to a larger, healthier system. And then it continues, right? But all within that creative growth time flow, timeline, right? In contrast to the entropic time flow, where, oh, well, that system came to an end. Oh, well, that's it. Guess we're all dead. You're like, oh, that's it. And then there's nothing more, because as we know in this holographic universe, especially as a human being, as you're projecting your reality onto it, so it goes, to a large degree. Of course, there's inertia and external forces and all that stuff. But the power of the human mind is significant. And so if you're feeding into your mindset an entropic death flow, and you're just going around and you're just seeing everything is like, everything's a closing sale, everything's dying, everything's just dying all the time, and there's no hope for renewal, and there's no eternity, and da-da-da-da-da, well, that's going to make a closed time spur for you. And then even if positive growth creative time flows come in, you're going to reject them because you won't be able to recognize them, because you're riding this death flow, this entropic time spur, right? And then that can spur all kinds of things, like, oh, basically like all the transhumanism. Oh, well, we're insecure about our physical death, so let's make all these machines and all these systems so that we can live forever, and we can stave off our physical death as long as possible in the face of eternity. Let's stave off our mortal death for a bit. I mean, it's asinine, but people do it, and it's because they're linked into this entropic time flow, where they can't see the creative growth timeline. And the creative growth timeline they're both true, but the creative growth timeline is the one that is the dominant one that the universe is on. And the entropic ones are just little tributaries that come and go. Now, philosophically, in terms of having an eternal soul and being able to, we're being stuck, never ending, our consciousness just continues eternally. It's great to have these varieties. Every once in a while you hop in a death time flow, you go through that, you die, you go wherever, you go, oh yeah, okay, that happened. But if you want to do things eternally that are long and sustainable, like start your own universe, you really need to link into the actual timeline that the universe is on in terms of its continued basis of growth and evolution and development, the life timeline, right? I mean, it could just as easily say like there's a lifetime flow and a death time flow. And the true philosopher who knows that, you know, we practice dying every day, and then you taste of everlasting life, and you know that physical death is an illusion, that the consciousness continues, then you know that, okay, that entropic time flow, it exists and everything, but it's you know, it's there, and it's good for certain things. It's good to put context on life, because somewhere between birth and death is appreciation. So it's great for organizing those sorts of morbid contrasts. But in terms of doing things that are long-lasting and hopeful and beautiful, really need to be on the love, life, growth timeline and time flow, because the concepts flow in one. Like they really are like rivers. Because in one river you have each time flow has different concepts and energies really predominating in them. You know, like if you're in the life, growth, love time flow, then life, growth, love concepts are going to be coming to you. You're going to find wellness. You're going to find creativity. You're going to find passion and joy and sensuality and life-affirming concepts and intellectualizations and compatible systems and ascension and enlightenment and all those sorts of things. And then if you get into entropic death time flows, you're gonna be not just really mainly not seeing the positive concepts coming in, but you're going to be flooded with depression, finite resources, zero-sum strategy, gotta get it now, this is the only life, there's the only time to get all your needs met is like right now, all at once. Like it can really make a person selfish and hedonistic and immoral, because if there's no tomorrow and everything's just dying off anyway, then what's the point, right? And it really is like that when you get into those entropic time spurs. Personally speaking, when I analyze like a lot of what's going on Earth, when we're talking about, let's say like aliens, and we're talking about the Greys, right, which are the ones I've dealt with, the Greys are they were on the entropic time spur. Like really externalized everything, really saw everything zero sum, really trying to use externalization to control their situation, control the reality, have like true dominion over it in the bad way. And they paid the price for it. And in my thinking, that's why they came back, was to try to either adjust their time spur or to dissolve it. Now, in my opinion, it was dissolved. I'll get into that another time. But to me, that was the main lesson that I learned from the Greys philosophically about time flows, was that they were on an entropic time flow and they tried to adjust it by coming back around to fix things, right? As opposed to, if we're going to stick with the cosmic analogies, plenty of people have been visited by the Pleiadians. And Pleiadians are these, you know, golden aliens, got enlightened on an all light love frequency, and they were on the growth, love, light time flow. And they didn't screw around trying to, like, you know, make little suits and try to control time and all this other crap. They went with love, and guess what? They still got high tech. They still got interstellar travel. They still got all that stuff. But because they were in the growth, love, light time flow, their evolution formed them so that they could more fully engage in the universe in the proper manner, right? In harmony with universal frequency. And they still got all their high tech, and they still were relieved of the things that were really scaring off the Greys to make them go run for technology. And the Pleiadians like really embraced universal frequency, live love, you know, the life, love, growth time flow that the divine fundamentals of the universe are programmed off of. And it's not a judgment in terms of, it's not like a moral judgment, like, oh, the Greys went that way and the Pleiadians went that way. It's more just an observation of the facts of like the operating laws in the universe. Because at the end of it, it's an eternal experience. Like the conscious, it's eternal. So you need variety while otherwise you just like go numb. You'd be like, okay, fine, because everything would just go back to being static. If you didn't have variety, to be able to either go, oh, it's a life flow or a death flow. If you didn't have that, then it would kind of just get static. Even the appreciation would get a little bit static, you know. I mean, you know, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe eternal appreciation, freshness in the moment, eternally, totally possible. But I do think that the experience and the knowledge of the varieties are essential in order to even form that sort of idea of appreciation. So yeah, so what are the major flows of time? I think there's the growth, love, light, time flow, and there's the entropic, you know, death, finite time flow. And I do think that, you know, in there are some, like, you know, neutral time flows obviously have to exist. They do. I don't know how one would describe those or find those as like some sort of just like flat plateau liminal kind of like timeline. I'm not sure, but I feel pretty solid on the other two. So as always, thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner. I hope you found it helpful, and as always, have fun.